He goes, that's your problem. Because, yeah, I need to fine tune what I'm doing up here. And what's the reason I'm here and why? But it wasn't until I started talking about auctions that my account really blew up. And I did a post in August of 2024, and I picked up 5,000 followers from that one post. And I was thought, wow, there's something here. And then it's like, you got to start a newsletter. And I was like, what the heck? Okay, great. I'll start a newsletter.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. In this episode, I'm hosting Shannon Jean, a seasoned entrepreneur. He started and sold over 10 different businesses, and he's just going to share some entrepreneurial chops. But if you are interested in the XSMB network, formerly Twitter, you might want to listen to this episode. He's grown his following from basically nothing to almost 40,000 followers in just 9 months. So if you want to learn his strategy for how he's grown a following and then also built a business off the back end because he is creating a media company, then you'll want to stick around for this full episode. Shannon shares a lot of different entrepreneurial insights from multiple businesses, but you will learn his strategy for growing on X if you listen to the full episode. So stick around for the full episode. We'll see you guys in there. We were talking about X, media companies, defining. So Danny asked you something really important, and this is where I want to go down this rabbit hole. Is like, you said you were struggling with.
I was cool. I was meeting people and stuff, but of course you want to measure your success, right? With, okay, and your business, okay, how much revenue did we have? How many orders did we ship? All this kind of stuff you're talking about. But up there, I was like, how do I measure success? And especially back then when I was getting started, it was, I want followers and I want people to be attracted to my content. And Dan asked one day when we were in our group that we have, and he was just like, Shannon, what's your offer? And I couldn't answer him. I was like, I don't know, man. He goes, that's your problem. It really was, it made me think, because, yeah, I need to fine tune what I'm doing up here and what's the reason I'm here and why. And so I started just getting more into sharing who I was and why, and talking about it, why I was up there. And then I started talking about growing on X. And I had some early success. And then it wasn't really until just did my thing. I was talking about entrepreneurship, and that was great. And I gained a bunch of followers and met some, just continued to meet great people. But it wasn't until I started talking about auctions that my account really blew up. And I just did one post, and I've did auctions and liquidation stuff in my whole life with various businesses. And I did a post in August of 2024, and I picked up 5,000 followers from that one post. And I was thought, wow, there's something here. It's pretty wild. And I also believe strongly in this concept of the whistle, the workhorse, and the whale, and that your whistle is what attracts people or clients to get in. And some people call it a loss leader. I don't like to do that, but stores use it like that. But just something to get attention. And then the workhorse is like your day-to-day great earners, standard stuff you sell. And then your whale is where you make your big money. I didn't have that whistle until I did that post in August, and that really blew up.
I've never heard it framed that way. So I want to dive into that because I believe that right there is applicable to every single business. And I'll tell you why, where my head goes. I spent some time here in Austin with a really high caliber entrepreneur. I'm doing some work with him down there with a land clearing business. And he challenged me to think deeper about our lead tracking metrics and just go back and watch some Hormozy videos. These are applicable to any video, any business, right? If you can nail your offer, you can get customers in the door, and then you can sell them your bread and butter, and then your high ticket, what you're referring to as the whale, right? So something I'm considering doing in Bear Claw right now, we do fire mitigation and land clearing. That's our bread and butter, right?
Right.
I would consider it a high ticket home service offer, right? We're average ticket size somewhere between 10 and 20K. But if I market stump grinding, hey, get these 10 stumps removed for some stupid price, like $4.97 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I recently got back from launching a land clearing business down in Austin. And this last winter, I launched a snow shoveling business alongside Bear Claw. And in both businesses, I've implemented Jobber as a way for us to efficiently manage quoting, job schedules, and invoicing, and even collecting online payment. Why? Because it's worked so well for us in Bear Claw, and it's saved us a ton of time and headache. So if you are looking for a software that can help you manage the back end of your business, look no further than Jobber. You can visit go.getjobber.com/ownerops, OWNROPS. just to get them in the database. That's the whistle.
Yep.
And so I've been thinking about this concept and I want to dive deeper into this. What did Danny ask you, or how did you guys define what your whistle was going to be after you found that success with the auction
Yeah,
posts?
yeah. So I started posting just more about it because obviously it's like people went nuts and like followers took off. I started last year with, I don't know, 500 followers, and I think I'm at about 40,000 to close to 40,000 today. And I just started talking more about it, what I did with it, how I got into it. When I was in college, I owned a landscape construction company and I was renting equipment. And I went to a couple auctions up here, and I live in Northern California. And I figured, man, I could buy that piece of equipment for, I don't know, not much. I just thought it was a great deal because I was paying thousands of dollars, sometimes daily, to rent equipment. And I was like, I can go buy that thing for 10 grand. How long does it take for it to pay for itself? And then so I did that. I bought some equipment, bought some tractors, skid steer, backhoe, and we used them during the summer because I was working during the summer to pay for the rest of I was in school the rest of the time. So at the end of the season of stuff to go back, I was going to Cal Poly, and I said, what do I do with all this stuff? I didn't have a place to store it. My dad wasn't about to let me bring it to his house. I wanted to sell it. And so I looked around and I was like, well, where do I sell it? And it's like, well, where's the place that it's most needed? And I called some auction companies in Southern California, and they were like, yeah, ship it down here, man. It's construction is booming. You'll do really well. And so I used this stuff all summer, shipped it down there, made a profit on it at the end of the season. And it's just like this light bulb moment in my life that I could use this concept of flipping and buying things. And so when Dan asked me what my offer was, and I started talking about the auctions, I was like, this is the whistle because everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody loves a treasure hunt. Everybody loves a good deal. And so I just started leaned into it and started talking about it more. And that built my followers. And then people were like, you got to start a newsletter. And I was like, what the heck? Okay, great. I'll start a newsletter. But I started collecting email addresses first. And I didn't even know what a lead magnet was. I hate to tell you that. But the first lead magnet, and still my best performing lead magnet, was a list of auction companies that I have dealt with for the past 25 years. It's like 150 companies. I threw up in a PDF. I signed up at ConvertKit, and I just started gathering emails. I didn't have a newsletter at that time, but I gathered probably about 500 or 600 email addresses before I even started sending anything out. So I knew that I was getting all this attention. I was like, don't waste it. So I kept leaning into that whistle. And then I kept building that up to where I was like, okay, everybody says I should make a digital product. All right, how do I do that? And I wrote a book. I've been in technology my whole life. And in 2017, I sold, and I've owned a bunch of companies, but I sold my last company with a bunch of employees. It was called Tech Restore. And I vowed never to sell anything with a plug again. Anything that plugs in the wall, I'm done. I've been there. I've milked it so many years. It was tough at the end, everything turns into a commodity. And so I get in lots of product, different stuff. And when I got into a couple deals with these high-end handbags, my wife, my daughter, the women that worked for us just went nuts. And I was like, that's interesting, man. This is a weird product. I don't know anything about it. So after I sold that business, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to start a handbag business. And so I did that, sold about $4 million worth of bags over 3 years, made $557,000. It was great. It was really good business. And I needed software. So I'm like, I'm going to build some software for this, automation software. Of course, you've heard this story before. Everybody needs stuff. And I created all this content because my programmer partner was like, hey, you create all the content, talk about this business, and that'll drive people to the software. I was like, great. But after about 10, 11 months, this guy went sideways on me. Our partnership fell apart. It's another story. But I had all this content, and I said, what do I do with it? I said, I've always wanted to write a book. So I hired a coach to help me publish this book, and it just went off like crazy. I had no idea. It was all about luxury selling and everything else. Coming back around the long way to your question, I took that book that I had sold thousands of copies of, and I created a digital product, and I started selling it. And then I created a digital product on how to grow on X, and I gave it away. There was like a free version, and you could upsell and everything. So that became my whistle to get people's attention to lead in. But I really still didn't have the digital products became my workhorse. I sold a lot more books, but I still didn't have a whale at that time.
Okay. Before we go on to your whale, can we dive in deeper on the mechanics of that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. First question, were you using X to market all of this?
Yeah, it was the only marketing thing I had.
Okay.
I had a lot of time on my hands. I started that bag business just as a new challenge, and I only wanted to work an hour a day. So X came along at the right time that I realized that it was a pretty powerful lever to connect with people and to talk about what my knowledge was and to the credibility funnel first, which I think you have to do that before you build a sales funnel.
Mhm.
And even though followers are, everybody says, hey, it's a vanity metric. The people that usually say that don't have very many followers. People do look for that for credibility, but also just your content every day when you show up in their feed and you share stuff. And um, X is definitely has built, I built a business up there for sure.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning.
Yep.
So for people who have no experience in digital marketing, like Shannon at that
That would
point,
be me. Yeah.
he didn't know what a lead magnet was.
Yep.
So this is going to be really valuable because I know there are probably some listeners out there who are building something like Ty, for example, Stump Guy Ty. He's building
Yeah.
a stump grinding business,
Killing it.
but
Yep.
now he's selling a digital product as well. He's making some extra cash. Just to, basically, he's able to use that cash to pay his equipment off. So, like, the way I
Exactly.
see it is, man, if you can do something and share something on X and make some money from it, why not? Right? Like, it
Yeah.
helps you accelerate your pay down on equipment, especially in these outdoor service based
Of
businesses.
course. A big key to it, I think, is authenticity.
Yeah.
You are really doing it. This is what attracted me to your content because I'm like, who's this Austin Gray guy and what's he doing? But I'm like, that's cool, man. He's just going to just smash that entire tree with that thing. And that's what got me interested in what you were doing. And then you like, oh, then you see your post. You're like, oh, he's building a business. Look, he's got this framework. And that's the mechanism to get attention. But I think that how you get attention, right, is the crucial part. If you just sit up there and talk about kind of some of this stuff is boring, right? What is your whistle? What gets them attractive? It's Tyler's stump grinding time lapse videos. Nails it. You're blowing up the forest videos. My auction posts where I say, hey, this is a $1.3 million worth of inventory that just sold for $13,000. That gets people's attention.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Now, whenever you define that lead magnet, you said, okay, I put together 25 auctions that you have used in the past. And then what did you do with that? Where did you post the link to that? And then how did you deliver that?
Yeah, so I didn't know what people wanted, but I was like, okay, I have this big list, and it was like it's 140 companies or whatever from over 25 years. So I said, how do I even do this? So I just asked people, what do I use? And I asked online, I asked on X, I built in public. I said, I want to help people. How do I, what's, somebody help me figure out where should I do this lead? How should I do it? And I don't even remember who told me, but I looked at Beehive, I looked at ConvertKit, and I said, ConvertKit seems pretty easy to set up quickly. They have a built-in landing page creator. I didn't really know what a landing page even was, but I knew that I could learn how to do it. So I watched some tutorials. I built a landing page. I linked a PDF, which was this list of auction companies. I posted it a few times and I got people, but it really took off more when I posted it in the replies. So I would post about an auction and somebody would comment, question, man, where do you find this stuff? And I would just put the link in there. And I said, I have this list. If you're interested, and hey, deem it. If you have any questions, just ask me. I made myself very available. I answered every DM. I told people, just send me a message, send me a message. And that one lead magnet, I think it's brought in over 1,000 emails and subscribers, but I didn't have a newsletter when I started collecting. I don't like to put things in the way. I have this thing, beware the onces. Oh, once I learn how to send a newsletter or once I understand what this is, I'll start. I don't do that. I'll just start. Okay. Everybody says I need emails. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's right. Created that, started bringing in followers and then, or bringing in subscribers and just kept using that. And I used it in the replies as well. Like when I didn't have a lot of followers, I would go up and I would see people talking about a topic and I would go in and I'd link back to a post I had made. And I said, well, you can buy this stuff here for nothing. And I would have that link there. So I spent a lot of time in replies for months building my account too, especially to get over that first 1,000, first 5,000, first 10,000 followers.
So from there, you build the newsletter.
Yep.
What's your workhorse at that point? Where's your
Yeah,
head
I
go?
really didn't have one. So everybody was talking about how fast my account was growing on X. It just was a topic. Man, you're blowing up. Da, da, da. I said, okay, maybe I should just tell people how I've grown on X. How do I do that? I didn't know how to do videos. I found somebody told me about Loom, and I went up and I said, oh, I can do this. So I created some Loom videos. I love Costco, right? I'm a huge Costco fan, and I've been buying their store returns and excess inventory for decades. And I love buying their product. You can make great money on it and enrich your life. So I made some videos about the Costco thing, but along the way, I said, I'm going to make some Loom videos about how I grew on X. So I made some videos. I went up on Gumroad, which I didn't know how to use. But I was like, I'm going to figure out this. This doesn't look very difficult to me. I took some content I had wrote in posts, like, hey, you know how I've grown on X? Because my DMs were just full of, hey, how are you growing so fast? Okay. I just posted that. Then I took those posts. I just repurposed that content over to Gumroad, and I created a free thing. I called it the Accelerator. I ChatGPT'd me a logo, a picture of a book for this, my program. And I just told people, so that became the next thing I just gave away. And when they signed up on Gumroad, they gave me their email, so they subscribe. And then people are like, I want to know more. So I said, okay, I'll create another level, but it's going to take me more time. So there was a free version of this accelerator. And then I made a section that was $50. And I was shocked that people were buying it. I was like, dude, I just made $500. And I've chased $100 bills my whole life and made
You and me
millions.
both.
Everybody talks about making millions, but man, if you can roll up hundreds, you can kill it, right?
Yes.
And so that grew, and I created this product. And then I took those Costco videos I had done, and I created another Costco product up on Gumroad. I wrote this luxury handbag book a few years ago. It took off, and I created a book called eBay Unlocked, because I've sold millions of dollars on eBay, and I'm really well connected with the eBay ecosystem. And I wrote that book, and that was a bestseller. So I sold the book for $10, but I put it up on Gumroad as a PDF, and I made a couple of videos, and I sold it for $50. And all of a sudden, I was making this money, and that was like this aha moment that people really do want to pay for this stuff. And it is courses and all. It has a bad rap because there's a bunch of garbage out there. But if you really make it useful, and people really dig it, and those became my workhorse. And then I hired an assistant, and that changed everything.
Before we jump into that, it's really funny that nobody bashes college. Like, nobody bashes getting a college degree, but there's so much negative connotation around buying a course. And it's just education. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And if it's truly valuable and is actually time tested and proven strategies, man,
Yeah,
I don't.
from people that have really done it instead of
Yeah.
somebody sitting in a classroom telling you how it should work from a book.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And again, you want to buy courses and stuff from credible people, right? You want to see what they've done, and you want to be able to look it up, and where's the evidence that they've done it? I don't want to pay for life coaching from a 23-year-old dude because I just don't think they've lived much life. Not that they may have some great stuff to share, but if I want a life coach or whatever, if you're looking for that, you want to find somebody that's lived the same thing. If I wanted to learn how to do land clearing and grow a multifaceted business, I find a guy like you who's done it. And yeah, spot on it. And it works. And I've done it my whole life too. I bought courses to learn how to build a website when I wanted to build it, because I was like, sure, I can hire somebody, but I want to know how it's done, so I just don't get hosed. And in some ways, I'm a real hands-on person. I do a lot myself, and I have to force myself sometimes to delegate. It's a problem that I have. But learning that first part and teasing it out, it's very valuable. Like, I don't do my newsletter anymore, but I learned how to do it. I still create the content, but I don't do the mechanics of it because I have an assistant that does it. And I don't create as many of the digital products anymore. I create the content and oversee it, but I have help doing it because it's a better use of time.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I was talking about, I think it was in our first recording here, how, guys like yourself, you were asking, why am I on the Owner Ops podcast? I'm not like an owner operator of a local service-based business. And I said, but you are a seasoned entrepreneur. And I try to do a fair amount of bringing people like you, like Chris Berg, like Simon Turner, people who have built good businesses and just have entrepreneurial chops to share.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge benefit for just coming on and being able to share, because every business, it's like, you can either decide to stay in that solo owner operated or bootstrapper phase. But you said something really important there. You hired an assistant. That was something I did at Bear Claw. And then now that I'm building the podcast, I'm addicted to it now. I'm just like, I just have to go find the next person after I pioneer the process,
Yep.
build the system, and then just see what's broken. Hey,
Yeah,
here's the system I built,
it's
read through it,
huge.
and then give me your feedback. How did you think about that transition?
Yeah, I'm a huge systems guy too, right? One of my posts that really is polarizing that takes off every time I use it, repurpose on an X, is I always post that goals are for losers, right? And winners use systems, right? Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, right? You fail based on your systems if they're not very good. And systems are repeatable, right? And they allow you to level up in small ways daily instead of this big goal at the end that you try to work towards. And I just don't like it. Once I started getting this workhorse concept, okay, great. I'm making a little bit of money and I was measuring success in $100 bills, right? But I was like, oh, there's something here. So I had my whistle. I had just beginnings of a workhorse. I didn't have a whale yet and I didn't know what it was. So then I was like, I need help because I can't do all this stuff. It's just too much. I was like posting on X all day, LinkedIn. I was spending 8 hours a day doing this stuff, learning this because it was just a big early time. And I always give myself a year. It took me a year to build an iPhone business that wound up doing tens of millions of dollars. It took me a year to build my landscape construction business and to understand it. It took me a year to understand how to publish a book to sell thousands of copies. It took me a year to build a handbag business because I don't know anything about that stuff, but the systems are what allowed me to do it. And then I was reading all this stuff about global talent. You should hire this person. And there's all these global talent people and everything else. And what's this? And one of the guys in my group, Parker Cox, he owns Pavago. And I was like, Parker, you got to hook me up. What's the story? I need help, man. I can't manage this stuff. So they have this great method and system. Okay. And I've hired global talent before, but it's much easier now. And so we did some interviews, had some people, and I found this one person who she was more expensive than the others. But what struck me when I was watching the interview and then when I interviewed her was that she justified her value really well. And I thought, man, this is really important because, yeah, I could save a few $100 a month, but this person, she knows her worth. And I really believe I value that a lot. So I hired her. And the first thing I did is I bought Justin Welsh's Content OS course for her. And so I put her through that course and she picked it up and I said, okay, I don't want to go on LinkedIn ever again if I don't
You
have
and me
to.
both.
Exactly. But there's value on LinkedIn, right? And I have lots of connections on LinkedIn, the people that I've met. And I have a system of finding people on LinkedIn to connect with to help you with your business. And I've used it a lot, but I didn't really ever do anything with content. So she started taking my content on X. It was the first thing I had her do. And she would take it and post it on LinkedIn. And X content's very different than LinkedIn content, right? But it stands out when you post it on LinkedIn. And so my followers on LinkedIn started really growing. I started getting DMs and connecting with people and made some really good connections. And then I put her in charge. I built a Slack workspace for her and I to communicate. We talk every day or communicate, and then we do a call once a week, a list of weekly tasks. She creates her own KPIs to say, hey, you can get a bonus this month. What are your KPIs based on what projects we're working on? And I had her
Can I
take,
in can
go
I
ahead.
interrupt right there? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because that's something I'm actually setting those in my media company right now. What
Yeah.
KPIs do you bonus on?
So I love KPIs, but I think they're way more powerful when you let your people set them themselves and you then, oh, that's not enough or that's crazy high. So it could be anything from, it depends on what you're working on. For me, it's all output driven. So it could be a course we're developing and she'll say, okay, I'm going to finish the first 5 sections of the course this month, or I'm going to finish the course and I'm going to, it has to be things they're in control of. It can't be like, I'm going to grow our newsletter subscribers by 500 subscribers this month. She doesn't control that. I do. It depends on the content and the lead magnets and all that stuff. So you can't make the KPI when it's out of their control. And so I always push back on just things they can do and not too many because I want them to focus on maybe 3 or 5 things that they can be really good at. And so it could be okay, I wanted her to learn video, right? And I use Opus.pro or Opus Clip. And I said, okay, I learned it, right? I went up, I figured it out how to do it. Okay, great. Now you go learn it and you take over and you create the videos from this podcast or this or that. And so that was a KPI. She had to learn that in April and she had to finish up certain content. But the KPIs start with them and she presents them in Slack. Here's my KPIs. Here's a draft. What do you think? And then I go and give her feedback on it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I interrupted you though. I don't remember where we were going though.
We were talking about the next step. So she took over ConvertKit, or it's just called Kit now, platform for the newsletter. I said, okay, you're in charge. I want you to learn how to do lead magnets. I'll give you the content. You're in charge of the newsletter. I want to be in control of the content because that's what I'm the best at. I know how to do it. That's my voice. I don't want to use ChatGPT. I don't want to use someone else. I don't want some ghostwriter. I just want to talk to people and I really enjoy that. So I'll write the content just write it in Word or whatever. And I give her that content. She creates the newsletter. I had her learn how to do the email sequences and automations and onboarding because it's not enough just to get somebody to subscribe. It's okay. What happens when they subscribe and why are they there? And so how do we lead them down a path to taking action with me? So she learned how to create the sequences and we have some incredible sequence emails now that go out to new subscribers.
Striker Digital specializes in SEO services specifically for local service businesses. Bodie and Andy, the two co-founders, have helped me get Bear Claw Land Services to the #1 search result on Google inside my state for my specific search term. If you want to learn more, visit strikerdigital.com. That's STRYKER-digital.com.
Depending upon how they sign up with a particular lead magnet. And as you build subscribers, I have subscribers that want to talk about entrepreneurship. I have a whole nother group of subscribers, probably most, that want to talk about liquidation, Costco auctions, all that kind of stuff. And then I have people that just follow me because I talk about trucks I like and taking my kids and going fishing and buying real estate and vacation rental. So you segment those audiences and because you can give them general content. That's what I mostly do, but you also niche. There's opportunities to niche that or segment that audience. So she handles all that, all the LinkedIn stuff. And then we built our first big course, spent a ton of time, all these videos, all this stuff. It was a disaster. It just sucked. I think I sold one. But during that process, we both learned together what the components of a good course were in a bad course. And this was like too much. I was just like, I'm just going to vomit out everything I know about this topic and it'll be great. But it was too much. And people were overwhelmed by the amount of data that I presented. So I learned a lot. And I learned also about the platforms. We researched all these platforms, Circle and School and Kajabi. And we wound up going to Kajabi because it had a steeper learning curve, but I felt it had more depth for what I wanted to do. And I want to build a community. I really want to learn how to host a community. That was down the road. So we learned Kajabi by building that crappy course, but now we build much better product and we've developed a system. This has all happened since like August. So it's pretty rapid. I like to move pretty quick, but I still didn't have my whale, but I had a pretty good workhorse and I was making some good money, not life shattering money, but as a measuring stick, it was cool. Cause for me, if I'm making thousands of dollars, there's something here. And I can put some energy behind it. And I'm a real energy guy. I give a lot of energy to get something going, but at some point it has to give me energy back or I lose focus and I have ADD, like, man, I'm shiny object syndrome like crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once it started kicking out, I was like, hey, I could go buy a new truck with this. That's how I measure stuff. I'm going to buy a new ATV or a side-by-side for my river property.
I'm right there with you right now. Like literally, that's where I'm at. I'm like, oh man, I could buy a side by side right now, but I'm trying to be disciplined with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I got this workhorse thing going and it's working. And then I didn't know what the whale was. And to close out this conversation, many people that I talked to on the DMs or after I started DMing and just meeting people and taking calls, discovery calls, And I was like, how do you do this, man? So I got a Zoom account. I built a Calendly so people could book I was like, what you mean you let people just book on your calendar? It was like really strange to me, but okay, great. It was cool. It was all new. And I started doing these 30-minute calls with people, and people often said, hey man, you should coach people because you're good at talking to people. And I have a big mouth and I like to talk and tell stories and I love helping people. I was like, I don't know anything about coaching. One of the ways I learned years ago when I wanted to get into something new was to just volunteer. And so I found 3 guys that I had interacted with up on X that I felt maybe I could help. And I just went to them. I said, hey, can I coach you for free? Because I need to learn how to coach and to see if I'm any good at it and figure out a system. So I didn't know the system of how to coach. I knew the mechanisms of it. How do you set it up? What do you do? One of the guys was Nathan Quinlan. He's a contractor house guy. And I went to him because he said, I really want to get into buying houses and not just renovating other people's and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I can help you. I think I could help you get there. I don't know anything about that, but I know about business and entrepreneurship. So I spent 3 months coaching Nate for free, just talking with him every week, set up a Slack workspace, back and forth, questions and stuff. And I started coaching a few other guys, and I started doing some free calls for people, 1-hour strategy calls. And the only payment I asked of them was a testimonial. And I started gathering testimonials. So I went and like, how do I gather testimonials? What do you do? So of course, there's an app for that. So I use Senya, JA.io, I think it is. And I just sent them a link and say, hey, if you think I added value on our call, I would love some feedback. And I started getting all this great feedback. So again, my credibility funnel was really building. At each level, that's what I focused on first, my credibility, before I asked anybody for money. And man, I learned so much coaching those guys for free. I learned what I could not help with. I had one guy, it was a disaster. He had financial problems. And I was like, dude, you need a fractional CFO. And he's like, yeah, that's it. And I said, let me introduce you to someone. But I realized that's value too. My network of people that I could help them. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And so then I finally had somebody that reach out to me. I don't really want to sell. I want to attract people that I can use their services or that they want my services and think I can add value. So I use this gravity concept. I want to pull them in with my content and just who I am and if I can help them. So I had a guy reach out on X and said, hey, I'd love for you to coach me. What's going to take? It was amazing. It was life-changing for him and for me. And it was transformational. And that's what I realized what coaching really is about is transformation. It seems transactional. I need to make more money. I want you to teach me how to sell luxury products. I want you to teach me how to sell Costco liquidation products. Yes, I can definitely do that. But I can also change your mind about how to think about entrepreneurship and how to build systems and how to share your story to attract people and all that stuff. And so I started doing that. And that's my whale, man. And it's been wild. It's been really cool.
That's so cool. So your whale is coaching.
Right now it is. I'm hitting some limitations with it because I have so many people that want to do it and I've doubled my price just to manage it. I don't know what it'll be in the future, but I'm learning a lot. I'm still building digital products. I'm in the middle of building the most comprehensive product that I've built to date. But I'm doing it in public. I'm doing a 10-week experiment in my newsletter.
I saw that.
Yeah. And I'm just trying something different. So I write a lesson every week and then my assistant, and we're getting ready to hire somebody else. She takes that content and creates a lesson and it's going to be this 10-step course. And then I'll go back and add video to the content and stuff, but I'm giving it away in my newsletter. And then something weird happened along the way. I got an alert that, hey, you're eligible for subscriptions for people to pay to subscribe to your content. I was like, why would they want to do that? I give everything away for free anyway. I talk about all this stuff and this systems and lessons I've learned. But I turned it on. And at the time, it was $5 was the maximum that you could charge. So I just said, sure, I'll turn it on. And all of a sudden, people started subscribing to X. I was like, I had 10 people. So that's interesting. Well, that's $600 a year. That's interesting. That intrigues me, right? And so I was like, what do I do for these people? I don't want to create a separate group of content. You've seen people that have their content hidden just for their subscribers. I don't really like that. So I said, I'll just create a group, a DM group on X, and I'll be in there and I'll answer questions. And then I'll do a call once a month. We'll do a Zoom call with everybody who wants to join. And all of a sudden I had 100 subscribers on X. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And that's around $6,000 a year chasing $100 bills, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't control it after 100, and the DMs, it was just a nightmare. So I think, okay, I'm going to shift all this to Kajabi. And so I built a community in Kajabi. And again, one of the guys in my group, I think it might have been Dan, I called it my subscriber group or whatever. And he's, Shannon, you got to call that a mastermind. I'm like, all right, that sounds great. So I called it my $5 mastermind. And I moved it to Kajabi. It was very difficult moving people from X to Kajabi. It took me weeks back and forth. And I still have people on X that haven't come over to Kajabi. It's just a lot of friction.
Sure.
But now every link I use, it's always the Kajabi link, so it's better. As of this morning, with this community that I started a few months ago, I've got 448 members.
Oh my goodness. And that's a monthly subscription?
Yeah. And it's only $5. It's a cup of coffee. But it's freaking awesome, man. I've learned so much on how to build a community, right? And how to interact and what people expect and how to do a meetup and how to manage that. And that $5 mastermind has turned into like my funnel, my sales funnel, because I have a coach, I have a branding coach that I hired to help me to figure this stuff out because I don't know what I don't know. And I don't know what to do with all these people. And he was like, dude, those people have already paid you. Those are your leads. They want to talk to you. So he's like, you need to talk to every one of those people. I was like, you out of your mind? Okay. So I created a 15-minute call. And when they join my mastermind, they get a link. I have a Loom that walks them through how to use the mastermind in Kajabi. It's just a forum. They can post things. And I have all kinds of resources up there for them. Some free, some paid. And there's a link to book a call with me, 15-minute chat. And you know what? Some of those people want a lot more than to join and pay me $5. So I talk about the digital products. I help them. I give them. And some people it's just, hey, 15 minutes. Great. I'll see you in the mastermind. I'll answer your questions. Some people I wind up spending more time with and they hire me to coach. And so it's become an incredible funnel. And that's been my journey on X, man, over, I guess, 6, 8 months? 9
So
months.
cool.
And I had no idea when I started. So this is what I would say to people listening is that you don't know where it's going to lead, right? No matter what business you're in. And just pull the string, see where it goes.
I'm with you. I think it's so cool. And thank you for sharing your journey. I have friends who are running small businesses and they're like, why are you spending time on X? I'm like,
Yeah,
why would you not? Like, it is the entrepreneurial gold mine. Like,
it really is.
Just the connections. And selfishly, I do this podcast so I can meet and talk with guys like you.
It's a hack. Yeah.
I truly believe that I personally get smarter.
You do.
By talking with guys like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in turn, the listeners get to learn from someone like you. And
Yep.
so I just believe it's just win-win. And I spend 2 hours a week on it at this point, right? Because like my whole team on the back end just produces all the content. We've got improvements to make and whatnot.
Of course.
But X is such a powerful business network right now.
Amazing.
It really, truly is. And so you heard it, listeners, from Shannon. Started 9 months ago at 0.
I futzed around the first 6 months. I didn't know what I was doing in there.
Okay.
But it really took off in August of last year is when it started going. And I hired my assistant pretty quick after that. And I realized it was taking off. But a lot of what you're talking about too is this. I really believe in the law of reciprocity, that you give first, you give out that value and it'll come back to you. And I've just seen it over and over in my career and the various businesses that I've run is give a lot away. It brings people to you and you make a lot more money.
I agree. I guess where I was going with that last comment was just to build off of what you said. It has opened up opportunities I never dreamed were possible. And I grew up working in my dad's concrete business in West Texas and then jumped back into kind of the outdoor service-based stuff and then started sharing on X. And then now here we are, we're doing business down in Austin with another really high caliber entrepreneur. I'm learning a ton from him. And so, yeah, if I can encourage listeners, it's like you mentioned the vanity metrics thing. I don't think that's what this is about. What it's about is in today's day and age, whether you like social media or whether you hate it,
Yeah.
it is a tool to
Oh,
open up more business
it,
opportunities. And the
yes.
people like Shannon who are using it, your wildest dreams can become
Oh, yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Spot on. It is that's where everybody's at. Whether they're scrolling Instagram, TikTok, or on X or Facebook, everybody's there. And whether your ICP, your ideal customer profile is on a Meta platform or on X or LinkedIn, whatever, that's where you find them. And every platform has different methods that you can succeed at. But you made a comment earlier, and I have been there, man, where you build a business and you put you're just trying to make a living, right? In the beginning, trying to pay the bills, and then you get employees and you've got to make payroll. Man, every 2 weeks I got to come up with how much. It's so easy for a guy like me to sit and talk about, oh, broaden and spend time up here. But if you give up and delegate, you will find that time, and it will be. Book I love is the E-Myth, where they focus on you got to work on your business, not in it. And if you want to get away from the daily grind, you have to get to that level where you can step aside, even if the people around you aren't going to do it as good as you. And I'm quotes in the air. If they can do 75% as good as you can, you got to step out and start doing other things. It's a hard lesson. It was very hard for me to learn that in my first few businesses, but it's what gets you out of this and gets you to the next level. If you want to stay up behind and drive the tractor or sell the product or whatever it is forever, that's fine. And you can make a good living at it. But if you really want to take it to another level and experience a different kind of life and an uncommon life, you got
And create opportunities. Like I'm in a point right now with my business, and I'm curious if you ever hit this, where I don't really have another choice because I have some high performers around me. And if I don't allow us or give up enough to allow us to grow, then I'm capping their opportunity at their current
and you're
path.
making competitors because they'll leave.
Exactly.
They'll go start their own thing. They're like, hell, I can't do it. But if you're like, hey, you can own this business someday. Of course, you want to create owners, right? And level them up. Now, some folks don't want that. And you got to be careful because, like my wife always used to tell me, hey, they don't want to hear your entrepreneurial BS. They want a solid paycheck. They want a good place to work and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people like that. And that's awesome. But there are people, like you said, high performers that want to grow. And I would just be like, hey, I want you to have my job because I'm going to be bored at some point and I'm going to want to go do something else. So if you bring those people up with you, it makes your life way better and it adds value to them. Of course, it's the opposite of that crab pot where the crabs are pulling everybody in. You lift everybody out, and then it in turn that fuels you, and you get to go do things. Because maybe like when I did it, I was okay. I'm leaving this business. I need to step out. I'm going to take way less money out, sometimes nothing, but I'm going to step in. This person's going to step in, and then I would go do something else. But eventually, that business would start kicking off money to me again or more money again because somebody else that came in. A lot of times it's about the energy and a different way to look at things. And maybe your ego doesn't want to hear it, but sometimes there's going to be somebody who's better at it than you. And you want to get out of their way, man.
I can tell you this right now. This is exactly what I've experienced in Bear Claw. I mean, our project manager, sales guy, brother of our lead field operator, like they just come from an incredible family. And there was a certain point, the hardest thing for me to give up was sales and estimating. So the way I built my business is I solo owner operated. I really love doing the work. And so that was the hardest thing
Yeah.
for me to pull out of the equipment because I just love it. I actually enjoy it. But then I realized that our field operator is actually way better at the work than me. And I would make mistakes with the equipment and then it'd be $1,500. And I'm like, dude, this is stupid. Like,
Yep.
why don't you just take all of this and then I'll go focus on sales and estimating. And then I don't have the $1,500 fixes because
Yep.
he never makes a mistake. The dude's perfect in the equipment. So then we like built that. And then we recruited our field crew. I handled sales and estimating. Then he's, hey, my brother's really good at sales. He does solar sales. So I'm like, shoot, let's offer him a job. So he comes on and he's very quickly, I just showed him our grading estimating sheet. I showed him our land clearing estimating sheet. And he like once he understood our pricing model, it's like, boom, he starts sending quotes, he starts closing deals. And I'm like, holy crap, this was something that I could not let go of.
Yep.
But I realized this guy's actually better than I was at it. So I just need to get out of his way and then
That's right.
support him. And so since making that decision, like our growth trajectory right now in the phase that we're in, where I'm like sitting back, managing, helping support our team, as
Yep.
opposed to like trying to get in his way, we're growing faster than we were when I was in the sales. And so that has been a transformational shift here. Yeah. And I guess long story short, it's like I'm capping those guys if I choose to just do this solo owner operated business,
Absolutely.
even though I love doing the work.
And you're capping yourself and you'll be
Yeah.
stuck and you won't have time. You'd be like, how could I do a podcast? Excuse me. How could I do this 2 hours a week? And how could I post on X? You won't have time. And the things that you're freeing up your time to do, you don't know where they will lead and who you will meet because you have the opportunity to breathe, man. And you're out of the trenches of that stuff. And you've got the insight to realize that there are better people at it, at those specific things. And I commend you for that because it's not easy. It took me a long time and I struggle with a lot of it. I still struggle because I should be like, oh, hey, I use like ChatGPT like crazy, right? It's like my assistant. And once they threaded all the posts together so it could search everything, I did that. There's a prompt that says, hey, identify my 5 blind spots based on everything I've
Yeah.
posted for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And one of it was like, you don't give up enough. And I was like, dang it. I thought I did.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like we have to do another episode. I think we could probably record 5 or 10 episodes and have an
Oh, yeah.
unending amount of things to talk about. I do want to go into that. We're also over the top of the hour here, so I want to be
Sure.
respectful of your time.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
And so we can wrap up some other things that I did want to touch on real quick. Was that Content OS course helpful for your assistant?
Oh, yeah, because I hire for personality and drive and ambition. I don't That's the most important thing to me. I think people can learn anything. So yeah, it's very important for her cuz global talent is great, but sometimes they're not here, they missed the context of it, right? The why, what's really happening, what are these things? So that Content OS really helped her understand what I was trying to build even if I didn't totally know it. And so yeah, it was a big accelerant for her.
And what was the price of that product?
It was $100, dude.
Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to buy it right now.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good course, and it's because it's an older course. He sold it, I think, for $300-400 when it first came out, but now I think it's $100.
Okay. And then the last question I had for you before I let you run is you and I are similar in the sense that shiny object syndrome, there's never a shortage of opportunities, right? And there's never a shortage of things to work on. So you're coaching people right now. You have this general business sense, but you also have identified that there was like that one offer that sort of got people at
Oh,
the whistle.
yeah.
What would you recommend that I do or our listeners talk about general or pick something specialized?
I think you have to let your followers, your clients, or the people around you tell you. I didn't know. I was just posting general stuff, entrepreneurship, and I thought I have a lot. I think I have a lot to add and talk about stuff, and it was okay, and I kept growing. It wasn't until I posted about that. Hey, you know what? You could. It was so silly too. It was a exercise equipment. It was like, hey, selling these exercise equipment loads, and this is like $18,000 worth of exercise equipment, and it's selling for $800. And that was what blew up. And I realized that, okay, my whole frame of how I talked about it was like, this is the treasure chest. These are the deals that we all want. Because especially on X, a lot of guys like us that have shiny object syndrome, and they're like, I could build a business with this. Well, who couldn't make money? I think it's important to niche and not be a generalist. I think you have to be more kind of a generalist until you figure out what
Mhm.
people want to. I have a client that I'm coaching right now, and we're still trying to find his whistle. And he's had some posts that related to NBA stuff that have taken off. And I was like, dude, you need to talk about basketball more. And he said, I'm a strategy guy. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. Your whistle could be talking about basketball and then using analogies from that to attract followers and then bringing those followers in. And then they say, oh, I could make more profit in my business. So you, you have to find the thing that gets you attention. Like talking about Tyler's stump thing. He's getting attention because he posts his time lapse videos of those stump grindings. That's why, not because he posts a text thread about how to build a stump grinding business. And he's talking about his journey from leaving corporate America, a soul sucking job, to be out in the field and grinding stumps and having a $30,000 month or whatever. But he's also, I made $2,000 the first month. So you have to throw a lot of stuff at the wall and really put in the reps. I will tell you, I have posted or replied almost 27,000 times on X.
This episode is brought to you by Dialed In Bookkeeping. Ben and his team provide bookkeeping services, job costing reports, and accurate financial information for the home services industry. If you're looking to keep your books up to date, visit dialedinbookkeeping.com/OWNROPS. When you use this specific landing page, you'll get your first 3 months 50% off.
And that's the only way I would have known the possibilities of what you could do with it, is by really putting in the reps. And it's a grind, just like your regular business is a grind. This is a grind. So I always tell people, don't watch Netflix. Your new hobby's making money. You keep your laptop in front of you or your phone, and you're either like I have lots of people I'm teaching auction stuff. And I say, you need to watch auctions, not some streaming show. This is auction time at night. So you have to be willing to put in the hours for sure.
27,000 replies. That's what nobody talks about right there.
That's right.
Let's wrap it up on that one, Shannon. Thanks so much for being on the Owner Ops podcast. I appreciate you sharing your time
come
and
up
wisdom with us.
and follow me at Shannon Jean, ShannonJean. Ask me questions you want to learn about anything. Come join my $5 mastermind, and we'll have a great time doing it. I'm having the time of my life up here.
This is fantastic. Thanks again for being guests on the show. Listeners, thanks for listening to another episode of the Owner Ops podcast. Every week we drop episodes on Friday where we talk about building local service-based businesses. Every Saturday, we're sending you a newsletter where we summarize the main learning points from the guests on the podcast. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, go to ownerops.com/newsletter. That's OWNROPS.com/newsletter. We'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less.